Every so often, an exemplary group of student athletes assembles at an institution to play football. And by the time they graduate, their imprint on the program is unforgettable. The senior class of 1988 at Harvard University is such a group. After winning the '87 Ivy League championship, they continued to rewrite the record book in 1988. And by the time the season concluded, a new crop had emerged as Harvard prepared for the changing of the guard. The '88 season began as 1987 had ended, victoriously. And it was the seniors who led the way to a convincing victory over Columbia. Tight end Don Gajewski caught his first career touchdown pass early in the first quarter, and the record-setting Harvard offense was off and running. And while the offense was clicking, the defense was crashing, holding Columbia to 20 yards in its first 5 series. It was 7.5 minutes into the game when quarterback Tom Yohe hooked up with Neil Phillips for a 36-yard gain, setting up the first touchdown. The seniors continued their dominance when Henry Olsen, number 5, intercepted a Lion pass in Columbia territory. From there, Yohe found Tony Hines for 26 yards, which led to an Allen Hall field goal and a 17-0 first quarter lead. Seniors Yohe, Hines, Phillips, and Don Gajewski, number 84, marched the Crimson offense up and down the field to the tune of 454 yards. A concrete offensive line, 4 of them seniors, opened gaping holes as Hines, number 47, galloped for 96 yards and 2 touchdowns. Senior defensive stalwarts Jim Bell, Don Peterson, and Greg Hubert, number 56, took control of the line of scrimmage. And before it was over, the Crimson defense had 8 sacks, 3 of them by Harvard captain Don Peterson, number 99. Columbia was limited to a meager 147 total yards and managed to invade Harvard territory on only 2 occasions. The constant pressure and 4 interceptions magnified the Lions' nightmare and presented Harvard with comfortable field position from the opening whistle to the final gun. By the time Tony Hines scored on his final carry of the game, 6 minutes into the third quarter, it was 31-7, and the substitutions in the game became a microcosm of the season, with the seniors gradually stepping aside for the underclassmen. Corey Thabit, number 17, picked off a pass, and 2 plays later, Jim Reedy raced 28 yards to his first career touchdown, closing out the scoring at 41-7 and setting the wheels in motion for the changing of the guard. Among the seniors from 1988, 12 were 3-year lettermen, and 11 obtained all Ivy League honors. The biggest transition will take place on the offensive line, where 3-year lettermen John Bartholomew, Tony Consigli, Maurice Freelow, and Sean Sensky, number 62, will graduate, leaving a space as large as the openings they created for Crimson runners. Maurice Freelow, number 51, was the only 2-time All-Ivy League performer on the offense. The beneficiary of the blocking up front was the ubiquitous Tony Hines. Hines carried the ball 3.5 more times than anyone else on the team. He finished his career with over 1,600 yards and averaged 5 yards per carry. He also caught passes for over 500 yards in 1988, including this 51-yard effort against Dartmouth. You won't find a tougher back in college football than Hines, who followed in his father's footsteps on the gridiron at Harvard Stadium. After breaking his hand late in the '88 season, Hines returned to rush for 241 yards in the final 2 games, while wearing a small cast on his right hand. He was the workhorse of the 1987 and 88 Harvard offenses. His dedication and concentration were unparalleled, and his career total yardage ranks 6th on the all-time Harvard list. But his impact was unforgettable. 1988 marked the first time in Harvard history that 3 players had 30 or more receptions in a season. Along with Hines, Neil Phillips hauled in 36 passes, and the 6'5" split end led the Crimson in yards gained through the air. Phillips' speed, size, and tremendous hands accounted for some spectacular acrobatics. As Phillips fulfilled the role of the deep threat, it was Don Gajewski who established himself as the possession receiver. Normally a term synonymous with unsung, Gajewski elevated his role and earned Harvard University's Most Valuable Player Award in 1988. His 40 catches established a record for Harvard tight ends. Gajewski was as rugged as they come, and his fearless presence over the dangerous middle became legendary. Hines, Phillips, Gajewski, along with number 43, Alex Konovalchik, seniors moving on, making way for the changing of the guard in the Crimson offense. An offense that also graduates its heart and soul. Harvard's all-time passing and total yardage leader, Tom Yohe, number 7. It is as if no one else ever played quarterback at Harvard. Yohe holds the single-season and career records for attempts, completions, yards, and touchdowns. He became the all-time total yardage leader with his 30-yard pass play in only his 19th career game. Later in the 1988 season, this pass became a milestone play, as Yohe became the first player in Harvard history to reach 4,000 total yards. Yohe's drop-back passing skills and his ability to scramble, roll out, and run opened up one of the most versatile attacks in the Ivy League. And despite its record, Harvard outpassed and outgained its opponents, on the way to establishing school records for passing yardage and total offense. These records are a tribute to the Crimson Field General, Tom Yohe. Another senior stepping down with honor, whose performances at Harvard were unforgettable. 2 others spent time at quarterback during the 1988 campaign. One of them, senior Rod McLeod, number 9, had his moment in the sun when he guided Harvard to victory over Brown University. McLeod took the reins in the first quarter when Tom Yohe fractured his left leg, and he took control after the first half, guiding the Crimson to 3 third-quarter touchdowns. The first score was set up on this 19-yard catch by Silas Myers, and the second, McLeod set up himself by rambling for 16 yards to the Bruin 13. 2 plays later, he found Neil Phillips in the end zone. The third score came just 3 minutes later. Don Gajewski took a McLeod pass and went 29 yards deep into Brown territory. And McLeod finished the drive with a plunge across the goal line. The injury to Yohe had opened the door for the senior McLeod to finally showcase his talents after 2 seasons as Yohe's backup. But the Brown game also highlighted the birth of new talent in the Crimson backfield. Junior fullback Art McMahon, number 34, carried the load from the opening kickoff, gaining 74 first-half yards and finishing up with 126 on 23 carries. It was McLeod's and McMahon's finest hour for 1988. It was also a crowning victory for the Harvard defense. Brown was limited to 177 total yards. During one stretch, the Bruins went 3 plays and a punt on 8 consecutive possessions. Junior linebacker Rick McIntyre, number 42, led the swarming Harvard defense, and senior cornerback Henry Olsen broke up one pass after another. The pass defense limited Brown's quarterback to 3 completions on 24 attempts, as Harvard romped 28-3. The Harvard defense will undergo a changing of the guard, but there won't be quite as drastic a turnover as on offense. Number 53, hard-hitting linebacker Brian Burns will graduate, along with defensive lineman number 95 Ray O'Hare, Peter Allen, and Tom McConnell, who spent much of the season sidelined with injuries. In the secondary, a pair of experienced defenders will make way for newcomers. Tony Molinari, number 24, who shared the team lead with 3 interceptions, will be sorely missed. At number 5, Henry Olsen, third on the team in unassisted tackles, leaves behind an enormous void to be filled. The largest vacancies will be created by the graduation of 3 players who have earned 9 Crimson letters. Defensive tackle Jim Bell, number 93, was an all-Ivy League rock in the Harvard line. Linebacker Greg Hubert, number 56, led the team in tackles and will finish his athletic career at Harvard by throwing strikes for the baseball team instead of throwing quarterbacks for minus yardage. The 1988 Crimson captain Don Peterson will also graduate after a stellar season and career. Peterson established a Harvard season record by sacking the quarterback 11 times in 1988. He was named first team All-Ivy League for the 87 and 88 season, during which he never missed a game. Don Peterson leaves behind a legacy as one of the greatest defensive linemen to ever wear the crimson and white. Taking over for Peterson as the Harvard captain in 1989 will be number 68, middle guard Greg Gusevich, who realized the defensive lineman's dream against Holy Cross with this 46-yard interception. Joining Gusevich along the defensive front will be Rick Puccio, number 94, and Mike Murphy, number 70, who played in 9 games as a sophomore and all 10 as a junior in 1988. The linebacking core will include rising superstar Rick McIntyre. McIntyre firmly entrenched himself in the Crimson defense as he made 38 tackles in the final 4 games, including a season-high 14 in the game against Yale. Harvard's 1989 defensive backfield may become one of the most talented units to play in Cambridge in a long time. Number 17, Corey Thabit, will be back for his senior year after playing in every 1988 game, as will Chris Maroney, number 44. Chris Resendez played in 9 games as a sophomore last year and showed signs of brilliance. Bobby Frame, number 25, will bring a wealth of experience to the Harvard secondary during his senior year. Frame recorded 6 or more tackles in 5 games and added 2 sacks and a fumble recovery to round out an impressive campaign. The mainstay of the defensive backs will be Jim Smith, number 14, who tied for the team lead with 3 interceptions in 1988 and had 6 in 2 seasons. Smith is a solid presence in a defensive unit whose plans are nothing short of leading Harvard to the Ivy League title. No one would enjoy seeing those plans carried out more than head coach Joe Restic. With 18 years at the helm, Restic has the longest tenure of any coach in Harvard history. His multi-flex offense has established new standards in Cambridge, and 1989 will see Restic celebrate his 100th career Crimson victory. While Restic remains a staple on the Harvard campus, he will watch his offense undergo critical changes. Number 69, Gerald Mahan, is the only returning starter on the offensive line. Running back David Haller, number 20, who returned kickoffs last year, will join Art McMahon in the backfield. McMahon, number 34, displayed an unlimited potential in 1988, setting the tone for next year with his exceptional effort in the victory over Brown. Wingback Silas Myers, number 33, showed great versatility and power. He, no doubt, will be an integral part of the 1989 offense. Another integral part will be Jim Reedy, number 23, who emerged as a reliable asset in last year's record-setting unit. Reedy finished the season second in rushing, and against Boston University, he had the season's longest run, 51 yards. Later in the game, Reedy took this pass and went 55 yards for Harvard's longest pass play of the year. In the final 3 games, Reedy piled up over 300 total yards and will be counted on heavily next fall. Split end Mark Bianchi, number 22, will also carry a burden, but the consistency he has shown gives promise to a prosperous 89. The biggest shoes to fill, however, will be for number 6, Tim Perry, who replaces record-setting quarterback Tom Yohe. Perry may well have been the most versatile player in the Ivy League last year. He lined up in the backfield, as a split end, at quarterback, and returned kickoffs and punts. A superb athlete, Perry's added mobility will afford Harvard the opportunity to be even more wide open than the record-filled 1988 season. The records were made possible by a group of seniors whose impact on the Harvard football program will be felt for years to come. The 1988 Harvard season, a season to remember the men who wore the crimson and white, a season for the changing of the guard. It was a season for overcoming adversity. It was a season with a fantastic finish. There was a milestone for a legend and a group of young men who epitomized the team concept, each taking on responsibility and dutifully performing his role. Individual glory was not the style of the 1989 Harvard University football team. Instead, there was a collective feeling of pride in a season of majesty and milestones. The turning point in the Crimson season was ushered in against Dartmouth with the return of starting wingback Jim Reedy, number 23. After missing 3 games with an injury, Reedy stepped forward to lead Harvard's game-winning drive. Reedy's play seemed to spark Harvard, which was trailing in a 5-3 defensive struggle. Runs by Andy Bell and Mark Bianchi, number 22, positioned kicker Brian Coots to not just win the game with 47 seconds remaining, but to bring full circle one of the most inspirational stories in Ivy League history. 2 years ago, Coots had a tumor removed from his chest. He lost a rib and part of his right lung in the operation. But in 1989, he came back to lead the Crimson in scoring and establish the character Harvard would portray all season. Each year, Harvard anticipates the game, but in 1989, the Crimson got the win against Brown. In Joe Restic's 19 seasons, he has won 58% of his games, captured 5 Ivy League crowns, and has been named Coach of the Year 3 times. On November 4th in Providence, Restic became the Centurion of the Ivy League, 100 wins. Barry Lippman pounced on a fumbled punt, which led directly to Tim Perry's touchdown strike to Silas Myers. Two minutes later, the defense revealed the force it would show for the remainder of the season when Greg Belcher intercepted a pass and returned it deep into Bear territory. Mark Bianchi then scampered 19 yards with an end around, and Harvard had a 14-0 lead in the first quarter. In the third quarter, Harvard continued its thievery when Tom Schrewer batted a pass and Craig Peck picked it off. 7 plays later, Perry found Reedy for the score, and the double nines in Joe Restic's win total began to turn over to double zeros. This was a true team win. Chris Maroney's interception, the 5th for Harvard, sealed Joe Restic's 100th victory as Harvard's coach. He has been a model of ideals and leadership, and the emotion of his centennial win would carry the Crimson into the final 2 games of the campaign. Through its first 8 games of 1989, it became apparent that the Harvard offense would have no statistical leaders in the Ivy League. It was a balanced, joint effort. When it came to heart, dedication, and pride, no team held a candle to the Crimson. The best example of these characteristics was quarterback Tim Perry. The most versatile athlete in the league in 1988, Perry took the reins of the multiplex offense from record setter Tom Yohe. Perry's exceptional speed made him a dangerous runner. He led the team in rushing touchdowns and was second in yards gained as a runner. He threw 10 touchdown passes to 5 different players, a trademark of the spread-out multiplex attack. In the trenches, number 69, Gerald Mahan, was the bulldozing leader of the Harvard offensive line. He was selected second-team All-Ivy League. Tom Callahan was not only an All-Ivy honorable mention, he was bestowed an even richer honor at the conclusion of the season, when his teammates elected him as captain for 1990. In the multiplex offense, Callahan and Mahan, along with center Mike Bertuccio, Buzz Crane, Mike Sukol, Mike Zwieber, and number 71 sophomore Doug Rosenberry, need speed and precise reactions. With Perry running, pitching out, dropping back, or throwing off the run, the men up front must be as versatile as their quarterback. When Perry threw, he often searched out 6'4" tight end Kevin Collins, number 80. Collins was a welcome returnee to the football squad after 3 years with the basketball team. His height became a benefit on special teams as well. Split end Mark Bianchi was named to the New England football writers' first team and proved to be a double threat. The men in the backfield were as active catching the ball as they were running it. Silas Myers, Andy Bell, Art McMahon, and Jim Reedy all finished with double figures in receptions. Averaging nearly 5 yards a pop, Reedy led the Crimson in rushing, despite missing 3 games. Short of stature, the 5'9" fireplug was not short of toughness, guts, nor determination. Number 34, Art McMahon, was a bruising runner. His durable 195-pound body carried him to the team's second highest net rushing yards. As a blocker, he had no peer, and he was honored with the award for outstanding sportsmanship, loyalty, and team spirit. If McMahon exemplified team spirit, it was the Harvard defense that demonstrated how spirited a team could be as a team. Sophomores Greg Belcher, number 29, and Sean Cascio, number 10, each had a pair of interceptions and were integral members of the defense. Chris Resendez, number 2, and Bobby Frame, number 25, were solid contributors to one of the most talented Harvard backfields in memory. Frame was everywhere, and he continued an assault on enemy quarterbacks that began in 1988. Chris Maroney was a one-hit tackler. Like an alligator and its prey, once a ball carrier was in number 44's jaws, there was no escape. And then there was the coverage man extraordinaire, Jim Smith. He was called on to cover opponents' best receivers, and he tied for the Crimson lead in interceptions for the second straight season. Smith suffered an injury early in 1989, but fought through it to lead the team in unassisted tackles, anchoring the unit through the final 3 games. Harvard linebackers played with reckless abandon and fire. Mark Pear and Joe Gordian, number 56, played critical roles on defense and were chilling sights on special teams. Number 37, John Lausch, was a pleasant surprise as a sophomore. Craig Peck was a vicious hitter who saw virtually no playing time until midway through 1989, his senior season. So impressive was Peck's development, he was voted second-team All-Ivy. The leading returnee at linebacker for 1990 is David Weiss. For the reckless, fired-up Crimson backers, Weiss, number 45, was certainly the reckless. And senior Rick McIntyre, number 42, was definitely the fire. McIntyre tied for the team lead in interceptions and paced Harvard in total tackles. He also displayed a left jab of Mike Tyson proportions. The muscle in the pits consistently held its ground, and late in the Dartmouth game provided a knockout blow that stopped the Big Green 3 times at the goal line and set the pace for Harvard's strong finish. Number 75, John Sparks, and John Brzezinski, number 79, will return in 1990. The 5 senior down linemen were all stellar Crimson defenders. Mike Murphy and Tom Schrewer, number 97, wreaked havoc in the trenches. Rich Puccio and Mike Vollmer, number 91, took quick advantage of the team defense concept. The heart of that gang tackle approach was the man literally in the middle of it all, nose guard Greg Gusevich, a first-team All-Ivy Leaguer. Gusevich was the Harvard captain and 3rd leading tackler. No small accomplishment for a man whose main job is to clog the center of the line. When Pennsylvania waltzed into Harvard Stadium in Week 9, the Quakers were looking to wear down the Crimson defense. The Crimson defenders, however, turned Penn's vaunted running game to mush, and when Lausch and Peck sacked the quarterback, Harvard was poised for the first score of the game. 2 long Jim Reedy runs highlighted a 72-yard drive, and fittingly, Reedy ended the series with a 6-yard touchdown. After limiting Penn to 36 rushing yards in the first half, Harvard drove 73 yards in 7 plays to open the 3rd quarter. Running behind center Mike Bertuccio, McMahon and Chuck Green, number 35, positioned Perry to follow Bertuccio's path to the end zone. And number 72 got a well-deserved piece of the 17-0 celebration. Early in the 4th quarter, the Quakers were in position to get back in the game. But the Harvard defense rose up again, and the offense obliged, as Reedy followed McMahon and Mike Zwieber, number 61, around left end. The Harvard offense was at peak efficiency, with unbridled enthusiasm. And the Crimson were primed for their clash with the Elis in the Yale Bowl. 3 times in recent memory, Yale has had an undefeated Ivy League season on the line with only Harvard standing in its way. 3 times, the Crimson have blemished that record. The 1989 edition of the game featured the 4th such subplot. From the opening play, Rich Puccio and company would send a clear message to the Elis. The underdog Crimson would not allow Yale a ground game, nor would it allow a passing game. Jim Reedy's catch and run set up the first score by Silas Myers. He powered across the goal line behind Doug Rosenberry. This would be Myers' game. After a career filled with frustrating injuries, Myers combined for 96 yards and 2 touchdowns in his final Harvard game. He scored the second touchdown on an 18-yard flip from Perry, and the Crimson led 14-0 late in the first half. Harvard's enthusiasm and emotion in this game epitomized the pride and dedication of the entire season. And chopping down Yale and its lofty record would be a fitting end.
Our team has had great spirit all year despite a lot of adversity, and this has been a wonderful half that they'll always remember. I hope they can continue in the same spirit.
And continue they did. Harvard's ball control offense, with flawless execution by the offensive line, drove the Crimson 75 yards using 6 different players. Fittingly, it was Myers' second effort that preceded Perry's 2-yard touchdown dive and a 21-0 advantage. As Yale rallied, Restic sent his offense airborne in the fourth quarter, and Perry responded, hitting Collins with a 31-yard toss. McMahon finished the drive, and now it was the defense's turn to show the Crimson spirit. On Harvard's next possession, Adam Luzaire-White went 36 yards on a rollout pass, and Perry let his offensive line do the rest. After Tom Schrewer recovered this fumble, the 1989 Harvard season would truly come full circle. Brian Coots topped off the 37-20 victory with the longest field goal of his career, and all that was left was for Mike Vollmer to sack the quarterback and start the party. They overcame adversity. They finished with a flash, and they got a 100th win for their coach. The Crimson, in a most prolific team effort, were magic in a season of majesty and milestones.